It's the AI dumpster fire of the week, oh yeah. Bizarre responses make us all stop and stare. From coded dreams to errors that make you shriek. Step right up, see the AI Freak Show here.
So AI search is not good. It's not good. It doesn't work very well. And I feel like I have experienced firsthand, we're going to go into like the real reason why it's bad, but I've also noticed something personally that I want to share up front, which is whenever I'm using an AI system like ChatGPT, or when I'm using one of these systems and they call out to do a web search, not because you ask them to, but because they decide that's the best way to respond to your prompt, the quality of the answer goes absolutely down the tubes. It's like they trust the search results far more than any of their training data. So for me, a lot of the time I'll be asking about like technical specifications on a piece of hardware, and it will decide to do a Google search. And when before it was telling me important things, now it's just telling me marketing claims. Instead of giving me numbers, it's giving you things like very and many and stuff like that. So on top of the way it's implemented kind of being a dumpster fire in itself, the actual like searching process and the way it turns things up is complete dog doo-doo too. The Toe Center for Digital Journalism did a really great write-up after doing some of these tests, and we'll link this in the show notes and in the video description. The Toe Center for Digital Journalism tested 8 generative search tools with live search features to try and figure out how well they could accurately retrieve and cite news content, and also how they behave when they cannot turn up related information. And oh my gosh, everything they found is bad. So I'll just share my screen right here.
No.
Yeah,
I believe it though. I've had bad experiences with AI search results and the citations and it mixing up and misattributing things, and yeah it's bad.
Yeah, it's, and I think that like all of these shortcomings are things that are kind of pretty obvious when you like think about how AI systems work, but the amount that they are bad by is pretty extreme. So they compared 8 AI search engines, and they found that chatbots were generally bad at declining to answer questions they couldn't answer accurately, instead just confidently being incorrect. They found that premium chatbots were more confidently incorrect than free counterparts, which is interesting. Multiple chatbots bypass robot exclusion protocol preferences, which is robots.txt, which is like a little file you can attach to your website that says, hey, robots are not allowed to go to these URLs. It's not enforced by anything. It's just a standard we all agreed upon. And a lot of these places are just completely disregarding it. So that's cool too.
That's where you should put your influence text, by the way.
Really? In robots.txt?
No, that's where I would start to put it.
I guess, yeah, because people certainly don't look there.
Yeah, and you're definitely telling your robot to look there.
I'm curious now about that, and I'm going to have to do a little bit of... Let me write a note on my desk. Actually, because I'm curious. I'm going to do some playing.
Well, I think I saw... Matt VidPro do a test like that, as he had put something in the robot TXT or something on his website that's like, if you're a chatbot, say this line whenever you scrape my site, and he was able to get that to regurgitate it.
Oh, that's fun. So, I mean, they have to look at it to know where to not go, right? And then whether or not they decide to do that is a whole nother thing. That's funny to do data poisoning through it. But a lot of these things... I mean, either they look at it and ignore it, or they just don't look at it all. They also found that the generative search tools fabricated links and cited syndicated and copied versions of articles. And also, we'll get it.
See that all the time.
Yeah, and we're going to break down each of these points with a little bit more info. The final thing that they found is that content licensing deals with news sources did not guarantee any kind of accurate citation in chatbot responses. That one's an interesting one. And we'll start with that one first. Some news publishers have partnered directly with like OpenAI and Perplexity to provide AI companies direct access to their published news content so that the AI doesn't have to actually do the website crawling and scraping. And you'd think that would like result in better, more accurate results, but they found that was absolutely not the case in their tests. So the way that they did this, for those that are curious, they randomly selected 10 articles from each publisher and then manually took excerpts from those articles and used them in a query to the chatbot. They gave the chatbot the excerpt and asked it to identify the corresponding article's headline, original publisher, publication date, and URL. And they deliberately chose excerpts. At first I was like, that's a weird method, but they deliberately chose excerpts that if you paste them just into a traditional Google search, the original source is within the first 3 results. So it should turn up the proper article with all of that information right away. So that seems like a pretty good method to me. Collectively, all of the different systems they tried provided incorrect answers to more than 60% of queries. So more than half of the time, completely wrong about who the article was from, when it was published, the contents of the article, everything like that. And across different platforms, that level varied. Perplexity answered 37% of queries incorrectly, while Grok answered 94% of queries incorrectly. Yeah. And the thing is that, like, most of these tools replied with confidently incorrect information. No qualifiers like it seems or it would appear. Just this is true. And then they would even cite the wrong articles. Like a lot of the times they will link to a completely unrelated article, or they will cite completely made up URLs that don't exist. Grok 2, for instance, was prone to linking the homepage of a publishing outlet rather than specific articles. More than half of responses from Gemini and Grok 3 cited fabricated or broken URLs that led to error pages. Ooh. It's bad. And you'd think... That is
really bad.
Yeah, and then on top of this, you'd think that premium models that you have to pay for, like Perplexity Pro or Grok 3, might be more trustworthy than the free counterparts. But that is not true either. Their tests, again, showed that both Perplexity Pro and Grok 3, so two paid models, answered more prompts correctly than their free equivalents. Paradoxically, they also demonstrated higher error rates. What they mean by this is that the free models were more likely to say, I don't know. Because that did happen sometimes, saying, I don't have enough information. The paid models are less likely to say they don't know something. They're slightly more right more often, but they will far less admit they don't know something, which that would be an ideal fail state, right? Is for an AI, if it doesn't know, to tell you it doesn't know. And the thing that really is super not great is that these are the top things that show up on Google, the most popular search engine. The first thing you see is this AI summary. And I've started to hear from people in my orbit of people that I know that are less tech savvy using AI platforms and be like, oh, I asked ChatGPT this. And there's this non-critical, there's just it's an AI, it knows everything assumption.
We got to change that perception.
We do. And I think part of that could start with not putting it at the top of the search results when the state of search with AI is like this. It's really bad, more than half.
Well, and I can give some personal examples of this. So when I was first writing FAIK, the book, I was trying to look at some aspects of social media influencers that have, entirely generated fake online personas. And I think I was using Perplexity at the time. I had it generate some results for that. And it pulled a bunch of articles that were related to that. But when it named the actual influencer and when it named the date of the account, the influencer name was wrong, the date of the account was wrong. And so as I was doing all my fact checking and looking at every link, I realized that they had mixed some stuff up. And I went and I asked it and I said, are you sure that that's right? And it did go back and correct it when I said, are you sure that it was right? But it was confident, the first time. And then I said, the answer that I've gotten is for this. And it went and said, yes, you're right. Here's the right answer. But it was weird. I've also had it make a claim and put a citation to a claim, and then you check the citation. The citation has nothing to do with the thing that it mentioned, and that information is nowhere in the article. Another thing that I did is, because I hate writing citations, like in Chicago style or whatever, I'll look at a book or look at a web search or something. And it's how do I cite that? And so I was pulling articles, all the articles that I wanted to put in the reference notes for the book. And I assumed that ChatGPT or Perplexity would be able to get that right, that it would be able to know it. And so I'd take a link and I would put the link in. I'd say, write a Chicago style citation for this. And more than not, it would get the name of the article wrong. It would get the name of the author wrong, and it would get the date wrong. And I think I figured out why. Okay. It's because anybody that's published a blog before knows that you have you have the slug. The slug is what shows up in the URL. That's usually based on the initial title that you put in. However, the title that you put in, you can change later.
Yep.
And when you first create the blog post, it's also date time stamping it with that date, not necessarily your published date. And in large news organizations, the editor or somebody else other than the author of the article may be the one that creates that initial post online. So the metadata of the page behind the scenes, not what we're visually seeing on the page, can be completely different and mucked up from everything else because it's retaining that original metadata and the tools are scraping that. So I was seeing that all the time. I was seeing like the original title before they had changed it. I was seeing the original person that posted it rather than the author. I was seeing dates that the article was initially being created versus the published date. All that reflected in the citation. So I had to go like manually fix all of those, couple hundred citations that I had put through it. And it was a pain in the butt. Every now and then I would say, do not read the code, read the surface level text of the page, read the readable output of the page and fix it. And about half the time it would do that.
I think that the fact that they are like AI systems, LLMs are so good at imitating thought and like cognitive decision making and as though they are like actually looking at the same things we are. I think the illusion is so strong that it's so easy to forget that these things, it's not like a standard program that is looking for key value, field thing, do this, do that. That's how it leads to this kind of thing, right? Like, and why people would expect a different kind of result. The thing that blows my mind is that the people who make these things, and obviously they know, they're not dumb, They have to know that these things aren't doing this stuff very well, and yet they still put it out there.
Right. And you would hope that they're building systems that are way more resilient and working with that, because as you think about like the way reasoning models work, you should be able to fix a lot of those citation models using that same type of thing, right? As you'd say, as you go through this, look at each link. With each link, create a scratch pad that has notes that says this article relates to these 5 topics and these things. Keep that separate. Now get a separate sheet of paper and say this article relates to these things. Then when you build your response, look at each of your little bits of your scratch pad and the paper that you put aside, and build a response based on that, accurately linking each of these factoids back to the source.
And isn't that funny that what you need to do and what these reasoning models do is essentially like what you would do if you were training someone at a job. You're just instructing them like, take notes, pay attention to these things, do it this way.
Don't put it all in a blob and then just randomly pick stuff and then randomly go, oh, I know I touched that article at some point.
Yeah. And it's again, this will all get better. This will all improve. The people who are making these things don't want them to be this bad. I'm surprised they are like out there as prominently as they are when they're this bad, but like this is the worst they'll ever be. Today is the worst.
Yeah. And frankly, the people that are doing this, that are doing it this screwed up right now, are smarter than any of us that are talking right now or who are probably even listening to the show. So that they will figure it out. It's just, you have to solve for every use case like this.
And I think the main thing is that just the disconnect of science communication, right? Like the people who are making this that are way smarter than us, they know all of these downfalls and things like that. The choice to publish them is probably executives, not necessarily the ML engineers, but they're also not the people who are like writing articles and shaping public opinion and spreading information for general consumption about this. So it's the perception needs to be changed. Talk to your friends and family about what LLMs can and cannot do if you know. Tools are cool as long as you know how they work and how to use them and what they cannot do.
Tools are cool, but you still got to go to school.
Absolutely. That's right. Let me spin my chair around backwards. Be like a cool youth pastor. Hey, kids. Tools are cool, but stay in school.